Thank you so much, Ria, for this very nice introduction. Yes, indeed, this place is very dear to me because indeed we had many collaborations already about children, about games also in Ostia and so on. And for today's, I will engage in this story, this difficult story of toys, and I will explain why it is a difficult story. But first, very quickly, just put the context, remind you of the context of this pluridisciplinary approach that we led during 5 years, with some members of the team being here. So written sources, thanks to Marco Vespa, really in-depth studies of text, and an anthology is very soon coming. Also examining sites, websites, not websites, real sites, archaeological sites, with notably Alessandro Pace about Pompeii, and his book is out, Ludite Pompeiani, and iconography. And with a very strong research community, because when I started, there were very few people working on the topic, and we had to build a community. And here I just mentioned a few. I mentioned the Digital Ludem project that has become now a cost action. So it's just to show you that we go on, that this is transforming over time. We started with a Board Game Studies Association, then it moved on and developed into another ERC project, so Digital Ludem, and now this game table cost action. We have about 45 countries. I would like also to mention in Warsaw, Katarzyna Marciniak, who led also a very interesting ERC, Our Mythical Childhood, about the reception of antiquity in today's youth culture. And now she got a proof of concept, the modern Argonaut, again about educational program and how antiquity can be useful. So always this dialogue between antiquity and the present. And I would like also to cite Claudia Labrugo and Alessandro Pace for the group in Milano who works on games and works on objects. So this slide is just to remind you what was the state of the art when it started. Many exhibition catalogs, but very, very few actual studies, in-depth studies about antiquity. Almost nothing, only books for wide audiences, as our catalogs, so which are also for wide audiences. And in fact, we also started with exhibitions, because exhibition is a way to collect the material, to understand the material, and to realize where are the gaps. So, and also what is also the benefit of these objects, how they tell us about toys, about play, games. So we started in 2014 in Switzerland. This exhibition went on. We had a very large one in Lyon during the ERC, in Dublin, and in Reading, and now in Pompeii. So if you go to Pompeii, there is an exhibition about daily life and a section about playing in games in the Palestra, where Alessandro contributed. This is just a little view of what we did in Lyon. It was huge, with boxes like a dollhouse on the different themes, but something that was for us very important, windows on play elsewhere, with an anthropological view. For instance, there we collaborated with Jean-Pierre Rossi, with Moroccan children, and looking at how they make dolls, how they play with these, how they make cards, and understanding the ecology of play in today's culture, but not our culture, but elsewhere in Morocco. So the aim was to collect this material. The aim was to understand this ludic culture, but through the ludic culture to have another view of ancient society and the dynamics between men and women, and we will mention it. I will mention it in a moment. But also to think about today, because today children don't play much with marbles or knucklebones, but they play with other tools. And what does it mean? And you will see at the end how we joined the two in a very new exhibition. So the question was about continuities or discontinuities, because for long, toys especially were held as something ahistorical, Children played since ever. You read it even in the D'Arambert et Salio and other places. So there is, as if there was no chronology. No, of course there is a chronology, and there are changes in gender, in use, and for instance with the hoop. I like this picture because you see this beautiful girl with a hoop, 1885, Pierre-Auguste Renoir. This is an impossible picture in Greece. Hoops, and I will talk to you about it, are for boys, not for girls. And I still don't know exactly when did girls get the hoop, but late, very late. So that's for boys. And the hula hoop also. And some games disappear, like ephedrismos. We may discuss it later. Some games are very specific to one period, one region, and so there is no such continuities. And then there are other ways of using the material, such as knuckle bones. Are knuckle bones for play, or for divination, or for gaming, or are they symbols, tokens? We have someone in the team, Barbara Carré, who works on that, and she's finding many interesting things to say. And then what you found in books are this kind of genealogy of dolls, same size, also articulated. That's the same thing from archaic dolls to the Barbie today. Of course not. Of course not. But they have something to do with passages. They have something to do with the class of age. They have something to do also with animation of agency of girls. And this we will see together. So we have this book out, indeed, with Marco Vespa, about toys as cultural artifacts, addressing the question, what is a toy? And the main problem is that we have no definition for antiquity, because there is no word for antiquity. So already there we see that there is a gap, there is a problem, there is another concept. In Greek we have aturma, paignia, in Latin ludus, iocus, ludicrum, but in fact it is sometimes translated aturma by toy. It can be anything. It can be a flower, it can be a shell, it can be a piece of jewelry, something that is pleasing. Pleasing to children and to adults. So we see a big difference. And Stephen Keat also worked on definition of play, of Paidsein, and could stress that play can be defined as belonging to the field of emotion, of pleasure, delight, enjoyment, amusement, such as also dance and singing, and you can see his contribution in some of our publications as well. So finding toys, first we have a problem because identifying a toy, we don't have a proper word. We can think of the object and we can look at the text and we see that we have objects produced by adults, as in Aristophanes, a toy cart. A character in the Cloud says, when you were lisping 6-year-old, the first obol of jury I earned, I spent on a toy cart for you at the Diasia, which means that one day when there is a feast, a big feast for Zeus in that context, you buy something for your child, something costly, so that Michel Manson would say the child stays quiet during the feast and gives a good memory of the feast. But this is something that you buy. So it is something made by adults for children, which is an interesting thing. We can come back to that. Or the ball, or the same for the ball. Aphrodite says to Eros in Apollonius of Rhodes, I will give you a plaything that you nurse made for you. It is a perfect round ball. And so it's not always the case, and Sally Crawford had a very important paper about the archaeology of playthings, theorizing a toy stage in the biography of objects. She says that, well, in fact, anything can be a toy. And here we are back to the Moroccan children, because that's what they do. They use anything, they reuse, they modify. So how can we detect that as archaeologists? And she says very rightly, this is a stage, a toy stage in an object that is invisible, because it has to do with the experience of children. So these objects tell us about this experience. And she makes different categories about artifacts made specifically for children, and we will look at some, and artifacts that are miniature versions of items, which can be regarded as plaything according to the context. And that's something, of course, very dear to archaeologists. The context is crucial. The context makes, in fact, the function of the object. We need this context, because any objects can become a toy in the hands of children, transformed. And that's what she calls these objects biographies, looking at the context. And so we have some description of objects made by children in Aristophanes again. The same father says about Philippides that when he was very small, his child, he's very proud of his child, he could make clay house at home, carve boats, fashion fig wood carts, and he would make frogs out of pomegranates as pretty as you please. Of course, the frogs made of pomegranates we will never find. Same for objects made with wax, as in Lucian of Samosata. It's even worse when you transform daily objects, and this we can read in Plutarch about a 2-year-old child who is inviting the nurse to offer the breast and to feed what? Even inanimate objects and playthings she took pleasure in. So paignia. We don't even know what she's showing to her nurse, but it can be anything. Please feed this. And so we don't know what it is. Martial has a very important point about the trochus, so the hoop. Because in his description, he acknowledges this transformation in the eyes of a child of a common object. He says, a trochus, or a wheel must be fitted with a tire. You give me a useful present, this will be a hoop to boys, but a tire to me. So he acknowledges this transformation in the hands of a child. And it is precious to see that an adult, Martial, can speak about it because he noticed that. He observed that. And so we can say that in a sense, these children playthings are a missing heritage, a missing patrimony. If they were made of organic material like the pomegranate, it's lost. Wax and rag dolls. We will speak about dolls made of bone or ivory or terracotta. Let's not forget the rag ones. We will speak about spinning tops made of fruits. They have also disappeared. And all that is reused. Also, this has disappeared, is very difficult. I show you this little girl here in Morocco, just to attract your attention to one point. She's playing with dolls, so she made 2 dolls. She's not playing dolls. She has built a house, and the 2 dolls that are made of 2 sticks and 3 times nothing, she plays marriage. Because marriage is the big thing in her life. And in the house, it's full of shells. She didn't want to make characters everywhere. In fact, the shells are the guests to the marriage. And so for archaeologists, suddenly you have an image of having found shells in a tomb. Gosh, maybe you missed the guest to the marriage. But as again, that's the transformation that the child can make with very simple objects. So I like very much this picture because it attracts our attention to that. And the criteria about miniatures, I wanted to attract the attention also to a very nice work that Ludovica D'Arani. It is published in Kentron, about this set of lead miniature dishes, and what was long considered as being a seat with a face possibly of a girl who had died, Julia Grafis, who lived 15 years. And Ludovica shows that in fact there is another face on the back, and not just on one example, also on the other one which is kept in Rome. It comes from Terracina, and that maybe this is part of a lararia, and these are the lari. And if these are the lari, then we are back to one hypothesis, that it was these were objects made to learn religious rites. As it went on for many years, even today, we found them on the internet. Susciter des vocations grâce au jeu de messe. You can incite a child to become a priest by making the child play with miniature elements from religious rites. And for her, the shape of the seat is not the seat, but it's retaken from the lararium with the face painted on that. And here in the Casa dei Vecchi, we see these children playing with dishes, using these dishes, and so learning rites, learning how, because that's how you learn rites. When you don't have a book to learn rites, you learn by doing, learning by doing, and imitating adults. So now I will go on with 3 examples of toys that we will discuss. And based on this book, which is indeed in press, there is also an English version soon out, Le jeu comme métaphore, images ludiques de Grèce ancienne, to make you aware that these scenes are used not to show you how to play, but are there to bring a discourse about precisely emotion and a very internal life that otherwise does not appear in text. And that's why these pictures are very important. And so we are back to this definition of Stephen Kidd, that play is a manifestation of pleasure itself. And for this reason, there can be no moment during play without pleasure, since play is its defining features. And here I remind you that we are Saint Valentine, so I thought maybe we could focus on play and love emotion. Why not? Huh? Because in païzo again means many things. It can mean play, but it means also play amorously and toy with love emotion. And the image I have on the cover is an image of a girl juggling, and this juggling is not innocent. It's not an illustration of what did girls when they are at home and they are bored. No, it's an image of the agency of a girl, because to throw an apple, melobolein, means to seduce someone. So I am an apple in the Greek anthropology. The one who sends me is in love with you, not your consent, xantippe. Both I and you are wasting away if we don't move on. Or Meleager, I am training love to play ball. He throws to you, Heliodora, the heart that bounces within me. Come now, take desire as your playmate. So she's not just holding balls, she's holding hearts. And that's why on the other side of the vase, we have a boy looking at her and looking at her being active in seducing him. And sometimes it is depicted in a funny way, in a parodic way. You have a girl seated here, and she's the manager of a game. She's going to throw the ball to Erotes, who are ready to catch the ball. And in fact, it's a play with an image. Normally, we have a pedagogus throwing a ball to young boys in the same attitude. And so we have an exchange. Instead of having this big, heavy beard pedagogue, we have a nice woman who is throwing the ball to the erotes. Again, a way to show her very active. And she's seated on a box. And this box is the box for marriage material, the material you bring in the marriage. So it's another discourse than texts give us. So my three items is first the hoop, then the spinning top, and then the doll. And I will start with the hoop and showing you all the metaphoric connections associated with it. So the hoop in Greek has a name. So this is interesting because, as I said before, we have difficulties in finding a generic name, but there are specific ones. So trokos, which means the wheel, and then so the hoop. So we have again this ambiguity between the two, but it means also, depending on the accent, a race, a place for running. So it is associated with speed, and we will see that it's also associated with skill. I pass over the other connections. It is associated with a specific class of age. Not anybody plays the hoop. I show you one text among others. Here, for instance, it's a definition of what happens with age. Well, in age, there are different interests, whereas children, to take a case, are all eagerness for balls and hoops. Men in their prime choose other things, and old men yet others. So we see hoops and balls are for a category of persons of age. Then, I mentioned it already, it's an ecological toy. It can be made of reused material, and we see it well in this Byzantine mosaic in Istanbul, where they actually really play with wheels, or this eros on this glass gem. We saw already this epigram by Martial. It's very cultural, because as I mentioned already, it's only for boys in Greece and in Rome, and in modern times, it is for girls. I mean, hula hoop, we see more girls than boys playing with it. It's 1958. So this gender the dimension is very interesting. So training boys, and we find it in Ovid. They have both the flying ball, the javelin, and the hoop, and arms, and the horses trained to go round the ring. But it has also another element of identity. In Rome, it's looked at as being a Greek game. So if you play the hoop, you play Greek. And you play in the Greek way. First, you are naked, as this Ganymedes on the top from the vase, and on the gem, which is of a Roman period, we see this boy running with speed in the hair, and he's naked, as is a Greek when he's training. So not at all the Roman way of training. And Horace is despising that. He says, well, where are the noble youth? They are unskilled at staying in the saddle. They fail to hunt. They are much better at playing games, whether you order him to fool with a Greek hoop or you prefer forbidden dice. So there is an interesting connection between the two, as if it was something useless. They are doing something useless. And I will not expand on that, but we see that the ergonomy is different from Greece to Rome. In Greece, there is a rhabdos, there is a stick that can have the shape of a hook. And in Rome, just to mention it, we see it on wall paintings. There are rings in the hoop that are funny to listen to. We don't know yet really how it works, but it works. And it is a difference. And it is a difference with the Greek hoop. They never have such things. So it has to do with skill. We see that in Artemidorus, pushing a dream, pushing a hoop means that the dreamer will experience painful moments from which he will profit. So it's not easy. I'm not sure you have tried to push a hoop. It's not easy, indeed. So it's something having to do with skill, so then social status and success. And Horace again alludes to the Campus Martius, where the young people would train, and he alludes to spectators. So when you are there and you train, you are looked at, and better if you are good. So for instance, he says, he who does not know how to play shuns the Campus Martius watches. And if he's unskilled with hoop, ball, hoop or quoit, lest the ring of spectators burst out laughing freely. So it's an image of skill that we see here on that gem, and I just show you two other gems where we have another element that is typically Roman. It is this kind of clavis, it is how it is called, which is a bent, very bent, sinuous stick, maybe to make tricks, because this one has two in each hand. So did you do something with two hoops at the same time? I don't know. Maybe not. The hoop has something special because it has a mythical hero who is Ganymedes. Ganymedes is the most famous hoop player. He was beautiful, he was loved by Zeus, and taken by Zeus on Olympus. And so he becomes an image of a boy, thanks to his beauty, that he will never die, who will be immortal. So he means much more than just a hoop player. So godlike Ganymedes was born the fairest of mortal men, wherefore the gods caught him up on high to be cupbearer to Zeus, by reason of his beauty, that he might dwell with the immortals. And so it goes on also in the Homeric hymn to Aphrodite. And on about 40 Attic vases, so this explains why you have so many pictures of hoop players. We see Zeus running after beautiful golden-haired Ganymedes, and they also play with pictures. It will come back, the way the hoop encircle his body and sometimes trap his body. Here it's more like framing his beauty. Sometimes we see Zeus losing control and trying to catch the poor boy, and he's no more going with his hoop. He holds it in the hand because he has to run very quickly, and we can recognize Ganymedes because the hoop is there. So the hoop is a toy that has become the symbol of beauty of a boy, an irresistible beauty of a boy. So look at how the hoop frames the leg. It is a way to, and it comes back on many other pictures, a way of alluding to the end, because at the end he will be trapped. So the being trapped is already there, and it is alluded by the hoop, as is the cock, alluding to an erotic present. Something you do in the gymnasium, and you will notice that in the gymnasium you also play spinning top, that we will see in a moment. Just wanted to end with a hoop, with life passages, with this vase, where we see a boy progressing with a hoop towards a funerary monument, and a man looking at him. And what we can say is that this way of walking quietly, well, it is something that is described. I'm stuck by my machine, but I hope it works. I don't know. I must not have. Oh, yeah. Okay. Antilos describes how you do it. So we understand from his description that he's reaching the end. He's progressing. He's in a transitional moment. And for me, he's in a transitional moment between life and death, because that's the dead boy who is reaching his tomb. And so we have description of how you do when you have finished running. But this is not the depiction of a pastime, and this is not the depiction of erotic overtone as with Ganymedes. Something else is on. For me, what is on is this image of a boy who will never die, because he's deathless, he's unaging, he's a Ganymedes in the sense that he will be forever alive. And we know in poetry this image of young individuals, girls or boys, but especially boys, that are taken by nymph, that are taken away. They are not really dead. They have disappeared. They have been taken by as here for Ganymedes. His father mourns him away, but he's told by Zeus that he will be deathless and unaging. And we have inscription where the deceased is described as a new Ganymedes. Hermes led me to heaven, and we even have a picture of Hermes instead of Zeus catching the boy. So it's an image of hope for the afterlife, and that's why it is on a lekythos. And for me, the man who is looking at him is his father, looking at his son, and his son, as we have another grave relief, a son who will be forever alive. And I wonder whether on this catacomb engraving there is not a play with this old idea of Ganymedes going to Olympus, being ageless and immortal, and with Paul, which is a more Christian symbol, meaning the same thing. My second example is the spinning top. Spinning top is very interesting because we have seen with a hoop. The hoop can be made of reused material. It can be also made intentionally to be a hoop. The spinning top is something made just to play. It's like the rattle. I mean, you don't make a rattle not to play. Well, you can do other things ritually perhaps, but the spinning top is really made to play. And Claudia Lambrugo has just out a collective volume about a turning world, 2023, that I recommend, with many interesting papers I will cite. And Marco Giuman also has a volume collecting this. And I will just oppose two actors with a spinning top, boys and girls. And you will see that the same object, depending on who uses it, has a totally different meaning. Basically, what is very interesting with spinning top, there we have names. We have even many names. We have seen that with the hoop, we have one. Here there are plenty of names. Thrombos, Strobilos, Konos, Bembix, Rhombos. We don't know very well what is what. And Andrea Scala, in the new book by Claudia Lambrugo, has shown that many of these names are zoonomic. It alludes to the bee, it alludes to the mosquito, to the fly. So it's an object that becomes autonomous. So again, we have having, like with the hoop, it's something that moves by itself. And archaeologically, and also in the text, we see that all kinds of material can be used, but always to be rotating. And the image we will focus on is this image from Matera. It is from South Italy. And what do we see? We see a young woman seated, dressed like a girl to be married, and Eros whipping a spinning top. and the girl is focusing on the spinning top. And to me it has several layers of meanings. So she doesn't look at Eros. Eros is invisible anyway. He's an invisible actor. She's focusing her look at the spinning top. So Eros whipping the spinning top can allude, we know, to the heart that moves, the emotion that bounds for the girl. And so it is a constraint. Whipping the spinning top means also a constraint. And Eros brings a constraint because the girl is going to be married maybe to someone she has not chosen. And she has to do so that this marriage will turn well, like the spinning top turning well. But she can also be looking at something else. She can also be looking at the transition. There is also a vertigo with the spinning top. And the vertigo can also allude to that moment of transition. And during the marriage, she can also be looking in sort of an evocation of a rite during her marriage. Girls are dancing. And they are dancing like spinning tops. And we have all kinds of pictures of these girls going around with their skirts being inflated by the air, and so like spinning tops. And in fact, we have allusion to nuptial rites when we read the Greek anthology. It has to do, for instance, as in Callimachus, the man wants to marry, and he asks one of the 7 wives on Pittacus, whom should I choose? And he's told to look at boys using their spinning tops, and the words they will utter will give an answer, an oracular answer that he follows. So for girls, and I have other pictures, but I don't show them to you. It's very clear that it has to do with love, emotion, and that's the image of a spinning top being whipped by Eros. When it is boys, it is totally different. And it took me some time to understand that. You have here a very typical image, there are a number of them. Hermes whipping the spinning top before boy. And the boy, you see, is completely dressed. So he has also specific age. The ephebe of the boy ready to get into the gymnasium to be trained. And we know that Hermes is the guardian of the palestra. He is the one who will train the boys to the discipline, the hoplitic discipline. And in fact, Hermes gets a whip, gets a rhabdos, gets a stick for guarding flocks. And very often in literature, adolescents are compared to young animals that must be directed. So for me, this image is this image of a discipline that the boy will learn. So it's something completely different. And I even found a text by Tellez, making an ephebe speak. Once again, he fares the cosmetes, the pilotrib, the master-at-arms, the gymnasiarch. He is whipped by all these people. And we hardly hear about that, but the discipline was very strict, and the image of Hermes whipping a spinning top means probably that. And there is one image on a cap in Florence where Hermes is alone, and you see that the spinning top is on a pedestal. It's very strange because nobody's there, and you think, what is doing this here? And to me, maybe an equivalent of a pilotrib looking at the boy who is well trained, like the spinning top that turns well, very disciplined, and who is now getting a crown because he has won, and the pilotrib holds his rod. Or like this one, this Aribalos, where you have 3 scenes, one of 2 boys training together, a ball and a discus. There is a play on the circle of either the ball or the discus. Then there are wrestling. And then we have 2 characters who are alone. The pilotrib with a stick and the boy with a whip and the spinning top. And so for me, they are synonymous. And he's alone. That's the whip for the spinning top is compared to the trainer's staff for guiding the athlete. So same object, but 2 different meanings according to boys or girls. I will finish with the dolls. Dolls being our big topic these last years. I greet here the presence of Pauline Maya, who works on Greek dolls, on terracotta one, on the production. to understand what does it mean. So what does it mean, this production of articulated figurines? It was very clear that we would never manage to address that question during the ERC because we had just too much to do. So the Swiss National Science Foundation awarded this project, and we are making big progress. And I will show you some of the results, not all, but some of the results, being aware that we have an issue in Antiquity very soon out, where we publish these first results. So Pauline is here, and she will be able to comment her new chronotypology, where it is clear that it's not that easy. It's not that some types, in fact, contemporary. We thought they would succeed to each other. So we see different modes of articulation at the hip, or articulation at the knee. How do you play with a doll with articulation at the knee? It cannot even sit. So very clearly, it's an object made to be hanged and to be moved, and also having to do with the agency of the girl's body. Yes, and I just show you this one with movable arms. It's a later one, but very interesting one. So 5th century, end of 5th century, because it has the attire of a girl to be married in miniature. She has the miniature lebes gamikos, the pot you get when you get married. She has also the nymphotriae. She has also the little boots. She has also the epinetron, what you put on the knee when you have your wool making. So the nuptial context of these dolls, so-called dolls, again, no, not a word in Greek. In Greek, you have nymphe, which means the girl to be married. And in fact, in Morocco, the girls who are playing with dolls to play marriage, there is no word for doll. The words is the married girl and the boy to be married. So we are in the same environment. So I will just show you the latest steps. And one which is very important is to have identified through different angles a type of doll, articulated figurine, showing a Pyrrhic dancer. So a dancer in arm. So not just the dancer that we saw with the spinning top girl, looking at perhaps the dances during her marriage, but much more than that. And this kind of anatomy on the belly, now we understood that it has to do with Pyrrhic dancers. And Susan Langdon has a forthcoming paper in one of the conference we organized about Pyrrhic dancers in Corinth. She identified a number. You may know or not, but during marriage rites, there were dances, including dances of girls with weapons. And we see these girls training dancing with weapons, and the dolls are very clearly that. They have a helmet, they have the armor, and if some even have a shield. And so I will not show you all the pictures, but we have many pictures of the girls training for this marriage rites. And the epinetron I wanted to show you, because the epinetron is what you have seen with as a miniature associated with a seated articulated figurines. This one I find very interesting because on one side you have wool making. Why are they wool making? So they are working at home, but perhaps preparing a feast, perhaps a marriage feast. And on the other side, we have Amazon. And I think that these Pyrrhic dancers, and not the only one to think that, have to do with this image of women being strong, because what they will have to face is difficult. It is pregnancy, it is delivery, they will risk their lives, and they have to be strong. And this is this kind of ideology. And I have another example which is quite clear that we understand when we understand that. You see on one side we have Eros with a spinning top, very excited. And on the other side, we have a Pyrrhic dancer training with a flute. So for me, it's like a comparison. Eros with a spinning top, and on the other side, we have a girl, not a spinning top, but a girl dancing, the Pyrrhic dance. So we have the same image, but with different, same idea, but with different images. Now the other surprise, and this is also something new, we found a number of images of boys holding a doll. South Italy, South Italy, and I think Annie Verbank, Pierrard, who from Marimont, and this vase was bought thanks to her in Marimont. And at the same time she was presenting that, I had found another one, and we found together a third one. So there is really a topic. These vases are ambiguous because they relate to marriage. And we see this atmosphere with Eros, the crown. Eros is here, there is a basket with presents, the crown, music, so luxury with the feline, this cat-like animal. But on the other hand, we know that these vases were present for the tomb. So has it to do with a proper marriage, or has it to do with a marriage that ended in the tomb? The spinning top also means that the vertigo of a girl to be married is also this transition of a girl towards being a wife, but sometimes failing and being dead with the first delivery. So a Choré becoming a Persephone. And we think that some of these dolls are between Choré and Persephone. And in that case, what is very interesting too, I don't know if you see that here, the girl clearly doesn't look at the boy at all, at the groom. She looks at the figurines that he's holding to her. What does it represent? Does it represent the dancer? She has a very short skirt again, a dancer at her marriage. Does it represent the Persephone she will become because she is dead? We don't know. The other vase is a Napoleon Lakitos from Zurich, and you see here again a series of people seated. Here, probably the girl to be married, facing a boy, holding a musical instrument. There are devices brought, such as a mirror, a box, or again preparation of a marriage. But behind the girl, there is a woman holding a doll. So again, it's very interesting because we leave Attica, where we have no such images. We go to South Italy, and suddenly we see in action and in a specific context how these figurines may be used. So again, alluding to something that takes place. So the other boy is from a private collection, and we don't know if you see the arms, they seem to move. Is he moving the figurines? Or is it just from the painter to show that it's not something inert, that's something that can be shaken, that can be activated? But we have the same context. Musical instrument on her knees, the boy, the seducing boy, and they look at each other, so a marriage to come, but a very beautiful amphora intact, so coming probably from a tomb. So again, we don't know. And these dolls appear also on jewelry for marriage, just to show you that they belong to that sphere. So these are the newest finds about articulated figurines having to do with marriage rites in specific context, but also having to do with an image of women who are active. And maybe that's why they are articulated, to show that a woman going from one house to another house is not an object you move. I mean, she has her own activity, and this is shown also by her limbs, her movable limbs. I wanted to open, as a conclusion, the box of toys to other items. And here I show you the famous Achilles and Ajax, the famous amphora signed by Exequias, which is in the Vaticano. We have names, Achilles and Ajax, and they are playing on a board with counters, and we know that this is the 5-line games. And this was also something we understood little by little. First, that it has nothing to do with Bergman, the 7 seals. It has nothing to do with death and sort of image of play with death. No, it's something completely different. Ideologically, it's much more what we see here in Copenhagen. It's for the 5 lines. It can be a 7-line or 11 lines. It doesn't matter. We have 2 dice on the top and the 2 6. It means they are training to be the best. 2 6, so the best plays with the best. That's why it is Achilles and Ajax. It's not Achilles and Hector. The best friends, and that's the true agon between 2 equals. And they train. And so they train taking risk. Taking risk, if you lose, what happens? Well, you play again. So you play taking risk. It's a strategy game. This figurine on the right is very interesting. There is another one with the mourners. Apparently the mourners are not well placed. They should be placed watching a performance on the miniature table. It comes from, not from the tomb, but from the trench. So the place, something is being performed at the tomb that we don't know yet, but we have to think about it. Again, performing something. And in any case, these images are an image also of an ideology of war and of fairness in war. On this vase in Würzburg, we have on the panel, we have Achilles' son Neoptolem doing what a warrior should never do. So he's killing Priam, an old man, on an altar, and women shouting beside. But what is interesting is that here you see the hand of the old man, and he's almost touching the feet of ANHIMa, who is like the Convention de Genève. She's there to say that's control that you need if you are warriors. Don't do terrible things. I mean, you must behave according to rules. And she embodies these rules in a sense, and they are ruled. They are playing together. And the other thing is that the hand of the old man, above it there is Lea Gross Kalos, and this calls to mind a call to the young man who is looking at the vase and maybe asking the young man looking at the vase, who do you want to become? What kind of warrior do you want to become? Like Neoptolem or like Achilles and Ajax? And we can make the same discourse about this cup plate, which is in Berlin. We have two warriors, and look at their helmets and the feathers on the helmet. And here we have two cocks, and I'm happy to have Marco Vespa with us, who works so much on animals and made us discover also all the symbolic of these cockfights. They are just above. It's not a coincidence. And here are boys making the cock fight each other. And we know that cockfight is not a purely positive symbol. Of course, courage, but also being blind, because the same kills the same. So you are killing the same family. It's not good. It's a model and an anti-model. And so again, the two warriors in the middle say we must train to be good players and to be good warriors, and not like those who are not like the cocks who become crazy. This image I like too, because we have ANHIMa again, so bringing this balance between the two warriors. And it recalls to mind to me what happens today with video games. You know, the video gamers, they play seated in a chair, and they call this sport. So they are doing sport, intellectual sport, but on the other side we have true sport. So they are really doing exercise, physical exercise. So there is a way of contrasting physical exercise and intellectual exercise, and both being important. Why do I show you that? It is because we should remember that these are toys, and toys we always put it in the context of childhood, and it goes much beyond, of course. What means a toy? It means to train with pleasure and to experience with pleasure, but it was long said that children did not play this kind of board games, and we think it's wrong. And I show you an example from a tomb in northern Greece, an extraordinary tomb, because there the child had not only knuckle bones to play, he had dice, he had counters, he had a war elephant, so we don't know why he had a war. We can discuss it later. Maybe his father was in charge of war elephants, but he had counters. So he was learning. He was playing board games. And I show you these vases because they come from the tomb of a child, from a kerameikos. These are it's a very late production, Lekitoi, late production, so early 5th century. And so why are they put in the tomb of a child? Is it a model of what you would have become if you were not dead? But Plato says no one playing games with counters or dice would become sufficiently competent if he had treated it as a mere sideline and not practiced it since childhood. So Plato recommends to play such board games because we know from other discourses that it has to do with education of a citizen. You learn common rules. You learn to follow common rules and so to build a community. And because if we have no community if people don't conform to the same rules. And I finish with the newest thing, which is the opening last Friday in the Swiss Museum of Games of an exhibition called De la case aux pixels, so from board to video games, Archaeology du jeu vidéo, and we were the archaeological part. And I show you a plate, and I will show you the animation that goes with this exhibition. For me, this is Palamedes. I take the risk. It's a cup, late 6th century. Why Palamedes? First, he's alone. He's playing alone, and that's very strange. There is nobody on the other side. We see the 5 counters on top of a table. And there are many elements that are fascinating. For instance, you see on his shoulders, there are running dogs. You must know that dogs, that's the name you give to counters. And that the pentagrammae is a pursuit game. So like animals that run after each other. It's a strategy, but it's also a race game. It's a race game. So on his body, animals are racing. Another element is interesting. His hand is closed. And we know that Palamedes, so he's this Trojan warrior, at Troy, he discovers, and even before, he discovers civilizing inventions, letters. He discovers the alphabet. And he discovers numbers, but numbers, you must know, in Greece are letters, are written with letters. He discovers war strategies, and he discovers the dice and the pentagrammae, so games with counters. And it looks very strange, but once you understand that all this is linked, it makes sense. You have understood that this game is a game of strategy, war strategy, and then it can also serve as an abacus. So in his hand, we know that he offers the dice to Tuke. The dice are probably hidden in his hand, that is closed. And for me, the dice are also painted here. So they are invisible in the hand, but they are visible on the table. And why can we be sure of that? Partly because there are Etruscan scarabs where we have the same position of the hand, but from the hand are falling dice. And on one, unfortunately, lost scarab, there is the name Talmite, which is Palamedes, that is written. That's why, presumably, we may have a first image of Palamedes on a Greek vase. And so the apology of Palamedes, because in fact Odysseus is a bad guy. Odysseus says, well, Palamedes is a traitor. He doesn't like the fact he has too much impact on the other warriors. And Palamedes explains, I am a benefactor because I have transformed human life. I have bring order to human life. I have invented military formation, written laws, letters, measures and weight, math, number symbols, signal fires, and play with counters. And now we will finish with seeing this movie that was made for the Swiss Museum of Games and present these inventions and how, in fact, on the space that you have seen of the pentagrammae, it can serve as an abacus. So it's a very cultural object. And that's why you have more than 200 pictures of Achilles and Ajax playing on it. It's not chess, but it's a very cultural object because you can count or you can play depending on what you do on it. So let's try. You must help me, I'm sure. No, that's good. And that's a cup which is in Basel, in a private collection. Thank you for your attention.